This is Sam Ray, and today I'm here doing my senior project for Gemini English. We will be doing a podcast on military mental health. Today we will have three special guests. We will start with Mr. Francisco Garcia from the U.S. Army, Mr. Antonio Massie from the U.S. Army, and last will be Mr. Maley from the U.S. Air Force. So thank you for listening, and let's get started. Hi, this is Sam. Today we're here to discuss military mental health with you. We're here with Mr. Francisco Garcia. First of all, I just want to thank you for your time and for your service as well.
Thank you for your support.
So we can kind of get started off. So what initially encouraged you to join the Army?
I have family members going back from uncles, close family members were not in the military, but I have my mom's sister's husband, which he was a Marine. So I tried to join the Marine at first, but I got disqualified for eyes, so I switched over trying to join the Army, which I did.
Okay. And what was your role in the Army, and how long did you serve for?
I was a 12 Bravo, which is a combat engineer. I served 4 years.
Okay. And what were your primary duties, day to day?
Primary duties for combat engineer was we basically reconnaissance. We had to do a lot of training in scoping out different roads, different routes for IEDs. IEDs is explosives. Also, we calculated a bunch of different equations for demolition. And we created certain shape charges and silhouette charges, whatever they required us to perform for a certain training exercise.
What was the most rewarding part of your service?
The most rewarding part of my service was a training exercise we had for the Marines. We were Op 4, which Op 4 is we had to be the bad guys for the Marines. They rewarded me for what I did. I took down 5 QRFs, which were quick reaction force for the Marines, and I took down 2 squads while I was on top of a roof. And the Marines, they rewarded me with a big letter stating each detail of what went down in the training.
That's very cool. And kind of going into the more mental health aspect of this, what was the overall attitude towards mental health while you were in service?
Attitude was really serious. We took it really serious, especially with our battles. We knew that most of the time, especially around the holidays, we were left alone, and we had to support ourselves, especially when it came down to visiting our families, and some soldiers couldn't, so we took it really serious.
Mm-hmm. And did you see, did you or anybody that you know specifically go through any extreme mental health challenges?
Yes, depression. Our unit suffered with a lot of suicide, so we had to take that part serious. And then, when it came down to us trying to be together, we tried mostly to be together, especially during the weekends.
Mm-hmm. And what mental health resources were easily accessible in those cases?
So we did have clinics that had therapy, and then also we had the hospital on post.
Do you think that those were adequate to help you guys?
Yes, but once again, I'll say the best resource is your personal battle, because they're the ones that was there and during training, or any issues that you had. If they had to talk to anybody, they'll talk to whoever was there with them, and they were the ones that were most understanding of the situation.
Mm-hmm. And as you have come out of service, do you think that you have enough resources available for help as well? Yes.
We do have enough resources, and also my coworker Antonio, he's been through the Army, he's been through the battle. So when it comes down to certain issues that one wants to talk about, I could either go to one that's been in the experience, or I could go to the VA, which is on Calkins Road of Rochester, and I'll have a therapist there as well.
Okay. And if you could improve the military's approach to mental health in one aspect, what would it be?
If I could, I'm sorry.
Improve the military's approach to mental health, like what would that be?
If we could improve it, I'll say have more therapists that was that was in your shoes, that actually knows, you know, the issues and could relate to each soldier or Marine.
What is one thing that you wish civilians, kind of what you're talking about with like people that have been in your shoes, they understand? What is one thing that you wish civilians understood about the military life?
So yeah, one thing that I wish civilians understand is this is, you know, joining the military is not a regular job. Just because some soldiers might have a better experience than others, you're basically signing your life away. And you know, for those military individuals who have been deployed, who have been overseas, it's a challenging role, and they, you know, you're basically giving up your family just to be with a different family that you don't know if you're going to see your original family ever again. So it's a tough role, and yeah, civilians got to understand that after that role is done, after that soldier or Marine or CB becomes a civilian again, their mental state might not be the same.
And if somebody were to tell you that they were planning on enlisting in the Army, for example, what would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
Advice would be just expect to be physically and mentally fit, because it's, you know, it could be easy for others, like I explained, but most of the time it might not be.
And last question here, do you think that there is enough being done to support veterans, whether it's community-wise or like VA or any kind of mental health support? Do you think enough is being done?
Yes, yeah, we could do more, but we do have certain programs like the Wounded Warrior Project, and there's other programs with different names, but there is certain, you know, certain programs that do activities and do support disabled vets and also veterans with mental health.
So kind of just to close here, I really appreciate you talking with me today. I appreciate your time and for your service again. Thank you. This has been incredibly valuable for my project, and I'm grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for you.
Welcome back. This is Sam, and now I'm joined with Mr. Antonio Massie from the U.S. Army. Thank you for your time and your support as well.
It's an honor.
And your service.
It's an honor. Thank you.
So today, again, we're going to be going over some military mental health, talk about your background experiences. So just to start off, tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to join the Army.
From Flint, Michigan. What led me to the military, I came from a line of military. My grandparents, both of my grandfathers, mom and dad's side, were Army. All my uncles were either Army, National Guard. I have one uncle that was a Marine. So it's not a family tradition. It just seemed like the route men in our family took in the 60s and the 70s. So I wasn't doing anything productive much really at the age of 25. So I said, you know, what the heck with it. My brother was getting into issues, you know, back home, and we just decided to take one for the team for one another, and
That's awesome.
the Army is where it led us. Yes.
And what was your role in the Army?
My role in the Army, I was a 91 Lima, construction equipment repair. That was the job I took when I enlisted. When I got promoted to E5, non-commissioned officer, then it was pretty much wherever my unit wanted me to be. So I was a school NCO, I did personal security, I worked at the brigade doing schools, so it's pretty much wherever the military wanted me after I enlisted and made, once I became a non-commissioned officer.
And what was the most rewarding part of your service?
Most rewarding part was doing personal security when I deployed to Afghanistan in 2014. When I deployed to Afghanistan in 2014, I was supposed to be like an aide for my brigade command sergeant major and a colonel. I didn't know at the time that it was going to lead to being a personal security for those two. So whenever they met with Afghan leaders, you know, I posted up outside the meeting space, sometimes inside the room. And what was rewarding about that was during those meetings, the leaders, they like to eat, have drinks prior. It was like a more of a cultural type deal. So I ate a lot of local Afghan foods. I was able to fly across Afghanistan, and I just saw a lot. So if it was any place I could visit again, no matter if it was from personal travel to military travel, it'd be Afghanistan.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yes.
And was that the only time you were deployed, or were you deployed?
Also
once?
deployed 15 straight months to Iraq when I first enlisted into the military. So that wasn't rewarding. That was maybe more of my difficult years. Being married, just being newly married, having a child on the way, and being told when and when not I could communicate with family. It was just rough. Iraq was more of a tougher time for me, and
Would
I
you
was
say that's,
newly
like,
into the
the
military.
most difficult part?
Yes. So I joined the military at a later age. I joined when I was 25. So by the time I actually completed basic training, my AIT training, and actually made it to my first unit, I was at the age 26. I had leaders that was like 20, 21 years old telling me what I could, what I couldn't do.
Right.
You know, if I needed to leave early because me and my wife only had one car, at the time, they would tell me no. So I was more of a pain in the tail for my leaders when I first started, and it was just a hard adjustment. And I had those same leaders when it was time to deploy. So that made that deployment hard.
And kind of going into the more mental health aspect, would you say that mental health was openly discussed, whether it was while you're on deployment or outside of deployment?
From my experience while I was in, I was attached to a support brigade. So mental health, sexual harassment, EO complaints, all that I was part of a brigade where all that stuff was a topic. We always had training, and by me being a non-commissioned officer, we were required to get that training because we had to watch out for signs that our soldiers gave us, even just the lower enlisted soldiers. So I would say it was heavily supported and talked about when I served.
That's good. And what, specifically, what kinds of support systems were there?
Well, we applied during the holidays. We applied battle buddy systems. Whenever holidays came up, no matter if it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, sometimes it could even be spring break, where the unit will apply more soldiers. Well, I'm not going to say apply. They was more open to accepting time off around these time of the months. And you had some soldiers that couldn't financially go back home to visit family. You had soldiers that didn't have family. Some people joined the military to run away from family.
Right.
So when you get to these certain times of the year, we implemented battle buddy systems. Non-commissioned officer, if we had soldiers in the barracks, we had to make more trips to do health and welfare to the barracks to see how the soldier was living, check out their conditions, and just sit and have one-on-one conversations with them to make sure everything was okay. And another thing was a big indicator was one of the major signs soldiers would give items away. They would sell items because they was in financial hardship, or they just felt, life wasn't, they were just in a dark place in life. And sometimes when soldiers give away items, it's, according to the military, it's an indicator, and sometimes that was an indicator. People would give away their valuables or sell their valuables, and it was signs of wanting to give up. Yeah.
And would you say that the military's culture impacts the stigma around mental health, positively or negatively, having to be Army strong?
Well, again, it's based off the leadership. If me joining at 25 and having good morals and values for myself, and I joined the military and became a leader, if I go back to when I first joined the military, my leadership was 20 years old. So now in the Army, you get promoted fast. And sometimes you will have an individual getting promoted that's not ready to be promoted. They may have what it takes physically, but they may not care much about a soldier and his family, or or what it takes to really be a leader. It's just a bump in pay grade. It's more power. So to me, it's based more on a leader. And some soldiers get put in situations where they're afraid to speak up to someone higher. So one thing I learned, and I even apply it here at work, if my boss Charlie or the owner Dan came to me talking to me and asked me, hey, do I need anything, how things going, that's my opportunity to speak to them one-on-one about things I may need. And that's the same thing soldiers have a chance to take advantage of when they're in the military. But some has that stigma where they're afraid, and it's based off the leadership. So I would say it depends who your leadership is.
Okay. And kind of as you're saying how you've applied it to work, how has your transition been from military life to civilian life? How was that transition, and how was the mental health aspect of that as well?
In the beginning, it was difficult. When I medically retired in 2016. It was so hard to let the military go. It was hard to accept what was going on. I stayed at Fort Drum a year after I got out. I still stayed on post. I found myself some mornings calling my buddies and saying, hey, let's hit the gym, let's go play basketball. And they like, Massie, well, we're at work. You enjoying the civilian life. So it took me a year to get over it, and I didn't want to let it go. I found myself some mornings still putting on my uniform. They'd be like, oh, dang, I'm not in no more. So after a year, I felt like I was strong enough. I decided to leave Fort Drum, move to Rochester. And when I left when I left Fort Drum, I moved to Rochester, I still sat around for a year doing nothing, just trying to cope, find out who I am, and just adjust to life, But the mental health thing, I stayed on base. It's not much going on where you have to worry about security when you're living on post. I found myself buying Ring cameras, installing Ring cameras in my home, just to feel safe. And just as years went on and more friends I made, and the more I got to know Rochester and my community, things got better.
That's good. And do you think that there are enough support systems, like the VA does enough for veterans?
Oh, yes, I say that the VA does. Me, I'm a very optimistic person. I do suffer from behavioral health, myself. So I have anxiety and depression. And, it was treated through medication, but I talked to my counselors, I talked to my psychologists, and we just found ways to wave away from medication and find other coping mechanisms. So now I'm a warrior leader for the Wounded Warrior Project. I'm a part of Wounded Warriors advocacy program. That's like in March. I'm going to Washington, D.C. to meet with Congress and legislators to talk about the shortcomings between veterans, no matter if it's the PAC Act, just where can we close the gap?
Between civilians.
Right, and transitioning from the military to civilian life. And so I don't like to be defeated. So I try to find coping mechanisms to help. And a lot of my resources come from the VA, but a lot of it comes from other veteran organizations like the Wounded Warrior Project. I could go on naming organizations that's great with veterans, but Wounded Warrior Project is a big one.
And what advice would you give to someone that's looking to enlist in the military?
Make sure you know what you want to do in life. I can talk to you, actually, so you having plans on joining, I would say think about what you really want to do in life. And if you want to go in long-term or short-term, you could use the military for college benefits. If it's just, for educational purposes, take advantage of it. Other than that, just get a job that you can do when you get out,
right,
when that day comes. And if you real book smart, I would go Air Force or Navy if you're the bookworm. So I love the Army, but even my daughter and my cousins, you know, I tell them, like, y'all very smart, high GPAs, go Air Force, go Navy.
And what is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody leaving the military?
Get all your resources before you leave. Talk to people that have experience before getting out, because you may find yourself in a situation where you missed out on the benefit that you only could have got while you was transitioning. Sometimes the Army closes the door on things. They try to get you out. I'm not going to say they try to get you out fast. They do have steps to out processing and transitioning, but some of it just goes by so fast because you're being dumped so much information in a matter of 30 days. Mm-hmm. So while you transitioning out, talk to people that have been there, done that, and they can help you with the benefits.
And just looking back over your military career, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Anything I would have done differently? No. I think God placed, you know, my path and my career in the military the way it was supposed to go. Only thing I didn't approve of was surgeries that I done had and having to transition out due to medical. Mm-hmm. So other than that, if I could do it all over again, I'd list again and do it all. My goal was 20 years. I made it to 12. So I'm satisfied with the way it ended. Mm-hmm.
And do you still have contact with some of the people you're in the military with?
Oh yes. I'm friends. I still communicate with maybe over 60 to 80 veterans that I serve with. So, yeah, 10th Sustainment Brigade, Fort Drum, New York, was best military experience and part of my career that I had. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And kind of just to close out, what are some qualities or mindsets that lead to a successful life in the military?
Positive attitude, being optimistic, being resilient. Being resilient is a big one. Every day is not going to go the way you expect it. Wherever you fall, just understand you got strength in your legs to get on up, and you have the mindset to be strong to make changes when it's time to hit the road again. Mm-hmm.
So thank you for your time.
I was honored. Thank you
for your service
Thanks
again.
For having me. Appreciate it.
Hi, it's Stan. We're back here for another interview, and now we have Mr. Mike Maley from the Air Force. Thank you for your time and your service as well.
Sure, thank you.
And to get started here, just give us a little bit of information on your background and what caused you to join the Air Force.
Well, when I got out of high school, I didn't really have much idea of what I wanted to do. I was debating between college, the Marine Corps. I looked at a couple of different options, and some of my parents didn't really like the idea of me joining the Marine Corps. They didn't like the idea of me, you know, even joining the military at all. They kind of thought I might get yanked out of there. So I went into work as a steel warehouse. I did a little bit of like maintenance work and different things in there, and that was horrible. So I ended up just getting into, one day just left the office and went back into the recruitment center, talked to the guys, talked to the Army, talked to the Marine Corps, talked to the Navy, talked to the Air Force, and kind of weighed all the benefits of each one and ended up choosing the Air Force. And I was gone like in, I don't know, it was like 60 days. So like it kind of happened fast. My parents were a little bit shocked. You know, I kind of left work one day, went to the recruiter, and then left. So I was like, yeah, I think I left on my birthday, like right around that time in February. So close to now.
And how long did you serve for?
So I did 4 years. We signed up for 6. There's like a delayed enlistment, or not delayed enlistment, mandatory reserve time, inactive reserve is what they called it. So I had signed up for that, and then I came home after 4 and was on inactive reserve for 2. So I didn't have to do anything, and then I was done.
And were you deployed at all?
No, not actually a deployment. I was stationed overseas in Iceland for about a year, and then I went to a couple of TDY locations out of Holloman Air Force Base, but never anything like 3 or 6 months longer than that. The first one was a year, then everything else was pretty short.
And looking back, what is the most rewarding part of your service?
Well, I mean, I started off with the intention of just, you know, getting a job, doing the right thing for my country, kind of having some direction in my life. And then I'd say the most rewarding part was probably just being molded into like who I am today. The respect for authority, the discipline, the waking up on time, the fitness. Those are all the things that I kind of gained from being in the military. So I would say the friends I made, probably that. I'd say my friends were probably the most important thing.
Shifting into mental health, what was the culture around mental health in the Air Force?
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate that we had a lot of guys that struggled with different things. Alcoholism was a big problem in the military across the board. We had a problem in that. In Iceland specifically was unique because we had a very high rate of depression. The reason for that is, you'll see if you look up any statistics, you'll see that America is #1 in antidepressant medications. Iceland is #2, which is very interesting because they're really close to America, and there's no real reason for that. They're a wealthy country. They do pretty well. They're well educated. Iceland has periods of 24-hour darkness, and I guess it does have a real effect on people's mindset. So they were really worried about us all the time falling into that depressive state. I kind of enjoyed it. It was kind of like nice. We also had 24-hour light periods, so those were almost equally frustrating. So you'd like walk out of the bar at nighttime and it'd be like noon. And then sometimes you'd, walk to lunch and it'd be pitch black. So it was a little bit weird on your psyche in that regard. So they were worried about it. I didn't have any issues, thank God, but I could see how it could definitely get under someone's skin.
And what kinds of support systems were there while you were stationed overseas and just overall in your career?
So again, I have to say the military does a really good job of checking in on us. So I'd say almost every 6 months my phone rings. Somebody calls me up and goes, "Hey, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm okay. But it's kind of nice that they do that. And then in Iceland specifically, they had, if you ever felt any of these things, they would constantly remind you. Do you feel like, are you tired? Are you sleeping a lot? They ask a lot of the questions looking for depression. And if they did, they'd definitely take care of you right away, get you in, call off work, etc. So they were really hypersensitive to it. I didn't have, again, I was a young guy, so I didn't have much to be depressed about. So I didn't feel like there was anything that I needed to worry about there. But I would say that the Air Force in particular, even as a veteran, they generally they're very cautious and make sure we're taken care of.
During your time in service, were there any specific stressors, or what were your hardest challenges in service?
It was being away from home, it's being separated, holidays, those are tough. I would say that there wasn't anything overly stressful, like as far as, there was always threats of deployments. And when I was at a high TDY base at Holloman Air Force Base, so we would constantly have to run these exercises. You never know if the plane was going to go or not. We would have to go gear up to go and hurry up and wait. So there was a lot of stress in that. But overall, I'd say I was pretty well taken care of. My needs were all met, and I was well taken care of there.
And if you could go back, would you have done anything differently in the Air Force?
That's a good question. So now that I'm 49, I would like to have maybe stayed in the 20 years and gotten the full pension, all of the healthcare benefits, and then I would have still been able to start a whole other career, because essentially I started a whole other career here, right? So I started a whole other career at 48 to 49 here at Stellar. I could have started a whole other career at 40 as well, with the pension, with the benefits, with everything else. I probably would have liked to have stayed. I maybe should have stayed. Maybe not. Who knows?
Right. And how was that transition from the military back into civilian life?
Well, again, I told you about this earlier. The Air Force is kind of a pretty easy transition back. We had the same disciplines instilled in us. Get up, dress well, take care of yourself, go to work. So it fit pretty good. When I got out of the military, I was picked up by Xerox right away. When I was on the fast track to there, I think the Air Force gave me a huge advantage in that. People were looking for guys that would work, were looking for guys that were on time, had all those capabilities, and I think it definitely helped me in that regard.
What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about the Air Force? That it's easier than other branches?
Well, yeah. So that's not necessarily a misconception. I would say it's not easier in that what we had to do was, it was I guess it was more comfortable. So maybe not easier, but comfortable, meaning that we had nicer chow halls, nicer gyms, nicer dorms, nicer rooms. We were taken care of well, but I'd say we still had to work pretty hard, long hours, etc.
And do you think the military does enough to support veterans and people struggling with mental health?
Yes. Although, to be fair, I haven't had too many mental health struggles outside of anxiety. So I think that's kind of comes with the territory of always hurry up and wait, push, push, push. So I've always had some level of anxiety. I don't necessarily know that I blame the Air Force for that. If I needed anything, if I needed to, for example, if I was having a bad day and I felt that I was going to harm myself, the one phone call, they'll come get me. So in that regards, I think they're very supportive. I just luckily haven't had to use any of those services.
And what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody looking to enlist?
Join the Air Force.
Join the Air Force. Okay, and lastly, do you think that there are any changes needed to the current mental health support system?
Yeah, again, good question, tough question. I haven't had to deal with too many instances with mental health. Again, outside of the anxiety.
Sure.
So I don't really have anything to say about what they could do better. I do know one of the things I found, maybe not necessarily catered to the Air Force specifically, but in my experience with the guys that I met in the Air Force, these guys are still like my closest friends in the world today, 30 years later. So I don't know that, I think that support, not necessarily Air Force support, but that brotherhood was really keeps you in check. So I know there's 25 guys I could call tomorrow and would help bail me out of jail, would help take care of me if I needed them, would help give me a job, whatever the case may be. So not so much Air Force, but I guess the military experience. Those are guys that would, help you in a drop of a hat. And having that kind of support in anybody's life is definitely powerful.
So, John, thank you for your time.
Sure.
Thank you for your service.
Sure, thank you, ma'am.
This is Samantha Ray. Thank you for listening to my podcast today. I'm grateful for the time that my 3 interviewees gave me. I hope you learned something today, and see you later.